Good evening, welcome to the regular meeting of the Board of Trustees. Today is Tuesday, April 7th. I'd like to have a call to order, please.
Mr. Fiegeling,
Present.
Mr. Quadro is present on Zoom. Dr. Spencer Robinson here. Mayor Sierra here, and Dr. Bonner here.
Thank you. We stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge of
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We have a mission statement.
The mission of Smith Vocational and Agricultural High School is to provide students with an education that equips them to be professional adults with a high level of expertise, knowledge, and competence in their field, creative and impactful members of their chosen vocations and their communities, and effective communicators who value diversity of thought, experience, and cultural backgrounds.
Thank you. Is there any participation by the public this evening? Cindy?
Yes. Good evening. My water there in case I choke. And I wrote things down so I wouldn't forget anything and I wouldn't babble too long. So on your agenda for tonight, if you look under new business, second bullet down is discussion regarding the potential of closing vocational programs, possible action. I ask that your discussion be about tabling the discussion. If it can't be, then I ask that you keep in mind that since your agenda was posted, some of our faculty have received questions concerning which ones, not ones of our programs will be closing. As you know, information gets distorted and or enhanced. In several vocational conversations around campus, we too wonder what the outcome of this discussion will be. I can assure you that you are definitely creating an air of anxiety in some of our vocational faculty and in future potential student families. The last thing that any of us wants is to lose possible future students because of rumors, misinformation that takes on a life of its own. As we know, it takes several years to close a program. As we also know, we have an administrative team led by Dr. Lincolnhoker and Mr. Bianca that are very qualified at what they do. A discussion looking into getting ahead of a possible situation or some type of due diligence is simply not needed at this time. If the time does come for a program or programs to be considered for closing, I have complete confidence in our administrative team to investigate and come to that difficult decision. In closing, I once again ask that you consider tabling this discussion. And if you can't, then I ask that you stay cognizant to the Pandora's box that you would be opening. Thank you.
Thank you. Participation by the trustees is something.
I think there's more.
Oh, please.
Ben Seraphin, on the Forestry Advisory Committee. I attended the meeting last week and was informed of getting rid of the tear down of the building, forestry building. And I have some concerns about that. It may be too late, but I just would like to, I have some questions about why that decision was made. To me, it's an asset knowing what we went through to get the other building built and to try to get the funding. It just seems like it's going to open up a major pail of worms, and I just.
Well, we welcome any conversation in regards to our buildings on property. And so I don't know what, as an advisory board member, are you making a recommendation?
I guess my question is why that decision was made. To me, my own opinion, there's a classroom there, there's a two-bay garage there. seems like it could be used for something. And the greenhouse that a lot of money went into. And my family's I'm third generation. These two are fourth generation. Family's been going to the school since the 1930s. We have roots here. We're very interested in it. We have passion in it. And when we came in October, there was like rumor about it, but no decision. And when I came the other night, it's going to be gone the 1st of May. It just seems, one question I had was why I did it when school was still in session. And I just have concerns about it.
Well,
It seems though to me it could have been used for something.
I want to welcome you for being here tonight. We take all your conversations very seriously. And like I said, impact in regards to the campus itself, in regards to the new building. And I know some discussion has gone on with the trustees in regards to making more room available out there. And that was part of the decision. But Andy, if you want to talk to that.
Yeah, I honestly, I'd welcome you to reach out to me after the meeting or tomorrow, whatever. We could meet. I can walk you through and answer all those questions for you. So if you're open to that, all three of you can come.
Can we? I don't know. How long do these meetings really last? Can we wait till after tonight? We're from Huntington, so I made the trek down here. So I would appreciate it.
Thank you. Petition-based money trustees.
Yes, I have yet another update from the Collaborative for Educational Services. We are second regular board meeting as opposed to all of the special ones we've been having on March 25th. Maureen Benenda, the interim executive director, had been on the job for only 3 days, but with her at the meeting, the beginnings of a culture shift could already be felt. She reported that she had met with Dr. Bonner to understand her priorities as the incoming executive director. And she stated once again that one of her main goals is to lay the groundwork for a smooth and successful transition on July 1st.
Mr. Quadro, had anything to say?
He has himself muted.
Okay, thank you.
Hold on, here I am. No, I'm all set for now. I'm just trying to get familiar with doing this Zoom meeting. A little different format than what I'm used to, but we'll get there. And excuse me. Thank you for the participation from the public. We take, like Mr. Kaling already said, we take all comments very seriously, and we will address those issues. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next item, may I have a motion and a second to approve the minutes of the March 24th, 26th Board of Trustees meeting?
So moved.
Second. All in favor?
So since there's a remote participant, they all have to be roll calls. Sorry, I should have warned you about
That's
that.
okay. Oh, for the.
So every vote needs to be a roll call if there's somebody who's.
Okay. Mr. Hagelin?
Yeah.
Dr. Spencer Robinson? Hi. Mr. Quadro?
Here, present.
Mayor Sierra?
Yes.
And Dr. Bonner?
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you, Ron. School spotlight.
I'd like to introduce Mr. Sabonis, who's our athletic director and co-op coordinator, for an update.
Good evening, everybody. Hello, Mr. Quadro. How are you, bud?
Whoa, Mr. Anthony Sabonis.
It's good to see you, man. All right, so tonight I came in October and kind of provided a quick update on athletics and on cooperative education employment. We'll do that again. Some updated numbers. I'm going to move over here so I can scroll through the presentation. So an update on our numbers. Right now, 98 is what's reflected here. on this particular slide. Good news, it's 67 students in the senior class, 31 students in the junior class. So those 67 students became eligible in January of 2025, and they've kind of over the last 14 months or so have been in and out and out and in. But anyway, we're at 67 right now. And the grade 11 students became eligible on January 21st of this year, and they started on the next vocational week, and that was 31 students. So we've got almost 50% of our grade 12 students out on co-op, and we've got about 21% of our grade 11 students. So you'll see that number is about 98. Now, good news is we had 3 more this week, so we're over 100. I think I mentioned in October that kind of one of my personal goals was to get over 100 kids from this campus out in the community working and doing the positive things out there. And so we did do that. It's great, and pretty excited to report that. So our co-op placements by shop, this is kind of interesting because you can see which shops are pushing kids out. And like I said, there's 3 additional kids. You can push 1 into horticulture, so that number will move up to 8. Push 1 into electrical, that will move up to 11, and 1 into public safety, we'll move it up to 11, and that's where we get our total of 101. Good thing about this is that 14 out of our 15 shops have somebody out. And, you know, I think there are some numbers that are smaller, and specifically culinary, we're dealing with a group of students in the senior class that have really no interest in going out. They get along with each other. They like coming to school each day. They like operating the Oliver Smith restaurant. So convincing some of these guys to go out has been difficult. Graphics, we kind of have an introverted group who likes to be here and feels safe on campus, and that's kind of that number. And then cabinet making, there are some kids who are interested in going out, but finding that finish work carpentry right now. There's more demand in the industry right now for builders, for contractors, than there is for the finish work. So we'll find some stuff there. And I have to speak about cosmetology as well. Sometimes that number is misleading because students have to accrue hours before they can go out. And oftentimes our seniors don't accrue hours till very late in their year. So to have 2 of them out is pretty impressive for that particular shop. Yeah.
Thank you for these numbers. And I wonder if, when we see them again, if you could tell us how many are out on co-op out of how many potentially eligible?
Sure.
Of the juniors and seniors.
I can definitely do that. No problem at all. So since October, we've added 23 new co-op business partners. These are businesses where people have not had co-op students at all, or in the very recent past. So we're talking about like it's been 10 and 12 years in some places. The ones that are denoted with the red asterisk, those are direct tiebacks to our school. Okay, so some of those are family members of students that currently go here. Some of them are graduates that have established businesses and now are coming back and pulling kids in from our own particular student population. Some of them just have ties because they're interested in Smith Folk and they might serve on an advisory committee. But all of those are places that have direct ties back to Smith Folk. So I think that's pretty important to know and to see that those people that are out in our community are still thinking of us and they're still welcoming our students into their employment opportunities. You can see the range of geographical regions here as well. Quite a few, just when you're looking at Montague to Holyoke, to some of these are out in Beckett and so on and so forth.
Makes sense given the geographic spread of our students.
For the most part, yeah. Also, just the needs in the hill towns are sometimes a little bit more severe than they are in the more populated areas.
So there are more opportunities.
There are more opportunities to pull kids in. Yeah, for sure. Anybody have any questions about co-op before we head into athletics? All right, sweet. So athletics, these are our fall sports options. I should have looked at the computer.
Could you touch on a little bit about what accommodations are made for, and now you're segueing into athletics, on accommodations of kids that want to play sports and also go out on co-op?
Yeah, so there's a couple of main accommodations that are made through our coaching staff. One I'll point to is our baseball coach specifically has varsity baseball practice at 4:30 each day. That maximizes the number of hours that students can get to practice and also have their 8-hour workday before they come to practice. Same thing can be said about boys basketball. Varsity basketball always practices late for the same reasons. And other coaches have different ways of making it up. So, for example, our lacrosse coach on the boys' side, he and I were talking today about some of the things that he does when kids come late. he stays late, right? So if they miss the first half an hour, he's willing to stay that last half hour and get the conditioning in and the other things that they might have missed. So there are a number of different accommodations. Those are just 3 simple examples.
Okay.
And we don't want to dissuade anyone from either getting the co-op job or playing athletics. We like to try to marry the two so they can work together.
Yeah, it must be a difficult situation to balance. And also you touched on how some kids aren't really up for going out to co-op because they're comfortable in the school and in their department. So that also seems to be a double-edged sword. You create this great opportunity for the kids to go out, but then it also, and I've heard some comments before about, say, a senior person going out that has good skill in the shop, and so they lose that in the shop environment by those kids not being there. What are your thoughts about that?
On two real platforms there. Number one, you're losing your senior leaders from the shop, right, that are showing the sophomores and the younger kids how things are done. And we have a great example of one in the public audience back there. Henry Seraphin is a kid who I remember him doing that when he was here. So, that is a really big loss. And then secondly, you lose the labor, right? So when you push kids out, now there's less kids to run the restaurant. There's less kids to do work on campus when it comes to electrical or plumbing, less kids to tend the animals down on the farm. So yeah, it is a double-edged sword. We want to make sure that they go out, but we also want to create a comfortable and place they want to be here on campus. And it can get a little, it's bittersweet to say the best.
Yes. Thank you, sir.
No problem. So athletics, fall sports offerings haven't changed. Obviously, you guys saw those in the fall. Our winter sports offerings, we offered 5 things this particular winter: basketball for boys and girls, cheerleading, ice hockey, where we sent kids to co-op with East Hampton, and wrestling, where we hosted a co-op with Northampton High School and Smith Academy from Hatfield.
Mr. Simonis?
Yeah.
Very quick question.
Sure.
For your fall sports,
Sure.
would you consider a possibility of another co-op opportunity with Northampton High School?
Depends on what the sport is and what our numbers are.
Volleyball.
Yeah, so our girls volleyball we cut kids right now. So according to the MIA rule, there is not an opportunity for us to co-op with anybody. The co-op rules are really gauged toward, we want to keep programs afloat that may not exist if they didn't have more kids. So I can't displace kids from our school with kids from any other school. It doesn't matter what it is. So yeah, if that became an opportunity, who would be my first call? Athletic director David Proof, right? So I would call him right away, and that would be the guy that I would call. Yeah, for sure. Yeah,
Thank you.
No problem. So our winter sports offerings, I just went over those. Then in the spring, we're in baseball, lacrosse for boys and girls. During our girls lacrosse, we do host co-op with East Hampton High School, and then softball. Here's our fall participation. These numbers have remained the same. No change since the last time that you guys saw them in October. Here's our winter participation numbers. Boys and girls basketball, we had 24 and 23. Cheerleading 12. Ice hockey, we sent 7 over to East Hampton. And wrestling, we had 5 student athletes from Smith Vocational. And then our spring participation numbers are strong: 28 for baseball, 21 for boys lacrosse, 20 for girls lacrosse, and 23 for softball. Our fall records and qualifications. This is just an updated slide from the fall. For some of you guys, Mr. Quadro, Mr. Kaling, I know you guys both attended this fall sports recognition night. You guys saw this updated information, but it is just kind of a summary of where we end up. I'm going to highlight a couple of things here. Our girls soccer team won the small vocational tournament, which is a huge deal for us. It's what we strive for in athletics. And then I would be remiss to not recognize our volleyball team, which went to our first ever Division V state tournament final. Unfortunately, they lost, but what a ride. Lots of fun, lots of support from the school community. It was good stuff. So yeah, that's pretty much the summary of that. And then in basketball, we had state tournament qualifiers. Ice hockey, the kids we send over, this is under East Hampton High School's name, but they were Western Mass Class B champions and didn't make the state tournament, but that's all going to be shown with East Hampton. It's not going to be shown with Smith, though. And then wrestling had a rough year, but had one student who happens to be a Northampton high school student. She qualified for the state championships and an all-state championships, and was her state champion class. So yeah, it would be really interesting. I know Dave is aware of that. So good stuff there. And then obviously in the spring, we've only played a handful of games. Fields have been, under snow for quite some time, and then underwater for quite some time. So we're in a situation where we just kicked off the season this week, baseball started with a wind and so on and so forth. So it's been nice. The kids are finally back outside until it started to snow this morning. So that's all I've got for you tonight. Dr. Spencer Robinson, I'd be happy to provide that information, really simple stuff that I can put up so you guys can see the transition there. And then anybody else with any questions?
Yes. How are you liking the position?
It's been great so far. Yeah, it's different than what I used to do. The pace is very, very different. And just the functionality of what I do on a day-to-day basis is very, very different. So yeah, less space time with kids and faculty, which I miss a lot. I liked working with kids, and I certainly like working with people that I did on a day-to-day basis. But I think there's real value in some of the stuff, especially on the co-op side, even though I'm a big athletics guy, and that's kind of why I got an education in the first place. But the co-op side has been really rewarding in a way that I didn't anticipate it to be, so it's been pretty good. Yes.
Both areas are such assets to the educational experience of students here.
Yeah, what are we trying to do? We're trying to make them a whole person, right? We don't just want to, everybody can be smart, but we want the whole person to go out and do stuff. And what's the main goal of the school, and especially our school, is to give back to the community from which we came, right? So we put kids right back out into those spots where they're helping their communities through municipal work or whatever it may be. That's a huge asset, and definitely a flag we can fly. Smith book, really, really good deal.
I want to just say on Tony's behalf that he's really been an asset to the school as far as co-op. I had a meeting this morning myself with Justin from Muck Park, and he's asking the school for students to come along for the summer for different things. And they're also talking to our carpentry department about building a small building for their bocce equipment. They put a new bocce court in over at Muck Park. So we do have a lot of community interaction. That's great, and a lot of feedback, but we got the right man on the job here.
Thank you, I appreciate it. But most of all, thank you guys for the support of the board. Without the board, we can't get the funding that we need to sustain these kind of programming, and so it's really important. And I'm really happy that you guys are attentive to this kind of stuff and ready to help when you can. So I really appreciate the help from you guys, and Mayor Shara, of course, the Leafs Fields, Dr. Bonner. The collaboration we have with Northampton High School and Northampton Public Schools is great. And so we really, really appreciate that from all you guys. All right. You got any more questions? Mr. Quadro, you got any more questions, bud?
Bear with me a second. No, I'm good, Anthony. Thank you. By the way, did you have the winner in the tournament?
No, I'm a big UConn fan, and so I was disappointed last night. I was tired and disappointed this morning, though. It's late to stay up.
Well, I picked Purdue because how they handled Michigan in the whatever it was, the Big Ten final or whatever that conference final was. But my wife managed to pick both Michigan and UConn in the final. So
well, just like you in your house, my house, your wife is smarter than you are. That's kind of how it is. All right, thank you guys. I really appreciate it.
Joe, no representing?
No, he had to work tonight. Yeah.
Great. You want to go ahead and do your report?
Sure, absolutely. Thank you, Tony. Great job. Appreciate the information that you share with everybody. So we are holding at 589 students. Just want to give you an update. The lottery will take place on April 15th, which I had shared at the last meeting, but we'll be video recording that lottery, and then that'll be posted to our website along with the lottery results. Official notifications will go out on the next day on April 16th, the students notifying them of their acceptance or waitlist status. Accepted students will be provided with a link to register, so they'll be able to register and enroll right off of that. Then what it'll do, I want to thank Josh Shear. I know he presented earlier in the year. right now to really link that information from the GoToCTE site that is able to handle the lottery. We're having to create a secondary method. So Josh has designed all that. This link will direct them right to there, and they'll be able to enroll and upload all their information, fill out the registration sheets electronically now. So that'll happen there. Students and families, they'll have 15 days to accept based on the admissions policy or decline the offer. Of course, we don't just like send it to them and ignore them. Guidance is making phone calls, when there's a week left. So they'll be getting that right before April break. And then they'll be reaching out that whole week after April break if they don't see if the student has registered a decision, if they're coming in or if they're declining. So they'll be following up with all those families to make sure that the students had ample time and that they understood what they should be doing so that students aren't lost. And that's something we do every year. And then we'll begin to move down the wait list. So there's going to be 2 wait lists as we talked about the last meeting. So there's one for Northampton students and then there's one for residents outside of Northampton. So that'll be that lottery. Are there any questions on that?
How are you feeling about the numbers?
I think the numbers, like we said before, they're 21% below. But I think it's still a solid number, and I think that we'll be able to fill all the slots.
And will you, at a future date, maybe sooner rather than later, share with us your thoughts about why we're
Yes.
Because I'm
Yep.
really interested in
Yep.
hearing that. And I know you'll speak with other vocational schools to see if they have how the lottery has impacted their numbers as well.
I will tell you, I did already. So MAVA, our Vocational Administrator Association, has strong affinity groups. So I met with the principals group 2 weeks ago, and then MAVA. I would say it's mixed. I think all the schools out east, their numbers have held or increased. Around here, the numbers are low. I could tell you that McCann did not even run a lottery because they only had enough to fill, which is really out of the ordinary for them.
Yeah.
So they accepted they filled all seats, no lottery.
And they're probably wondering what's going on.
Yeah. So I think everybody's going to be working through this. Again, I think a lot of it has to do with what Dr. Lincoln Hoker's presented before, is that the 4 counties in Western Massachusetts are declining rapidly. And I think that's going to have an overall impact in the future of the number of students. And we'll see if this is a trend or if this was merely a product of us shifting the window. Normally our window's a lot longer. It's open in October and then it closes on March 15th. And then by state regulations now it can only be open from November 1st to February 15th. So we had it open the longest it could possibly be. But we'll see how that goes. But yeah, we plan on also sitting as an internal group and talking about what we think impacted it and what we could do to try to improve the amount of applications next year.
Great. And I along with Josh Clark, I'm on the admissions data, and I think it's called the admissions data working group, whatever it is, where the goal is to understand it. We had a first meeting, it was really good, really thoughtful. A mixed group of people on it for sure. And it was the meeting was well facilitated. But the questions that were asked, the things that are known, the things that aren't known, the openness to understanding, what the implications of, and the effects of the policy.
Yeah, that's great to hear.
Any questions, I'm sure that you'll channel them to Josh. You can channel them to me too. Like, hey, we'd like to know more about this. We were wondering about that. Can Desi look into that? Because that's exactly what that group is about.
Oh, good. Excellent. Any other question on that part of it? Okay. Graduation prep, just to give everybody a heads up. So we're going to hit April break and then it's a fast downhill from there. So we'll be sending out information this Friday about the senior salutes. I'm going to highlight Alicia Carter. She does a great job behind the scenes of taking that information and putting it into the template with the student's photo and getting that all prepped. And then that gets shared with me to be able to send out to the community. And then Ms. Scantz, obviously, who then sends it out over social media. So it's a great production that we have going on. That's in collaboration with the graphic visual arts department because they're supplying all the photos of those seniors that have already been submitted for the yearbook. So it's a good collaborative that takes place behind the scenes.
Nice legacy of the pandemic.
Yes, that is a good legacy of the pandemic, 100%. And we'll be sharing those out starting May 1st. And then information will be sent out to all the senior parents and families right after April break, so that they'll see everything in detail about what's going to happen and what the days are and what the dates are. So they'll get all that information. Some highlights from FFA. We just had the FFA State Convention on April 1st. We had a lot more winners to this, but I just want to highlight those who are going to be moving on to regionals and nationals at this point in time. We want to congratulate Jacob Maloney, who got state star in agribusiness, and he'll be going to regionals. Ag marketing team will be going to regionals and nationals. That's with our math department head, Liz Flores. So she actually coached that team, and she'll be going to Indianapolis with them in October. That's Morgan Morris, Nellie Albitz, and Jacob Maloney. Forestry team will be going to regionals and nationals. That's coached by Jim Ansbach, and that's Tom Cable, Lucas DuPont, Aaron Miller, Mackenzie O'Connor. And dairy handling, Aaron Judd. She's got first. She's going to regionals. That'll be held at the Big E. And Vera Hollowell, who's daughter of one of our farm techs, Amy, who's also an FFA advisor. She got second. She'll be going to regionals at the Big E also. So pending any additional questions, that's my report.
Do have one more, not for you, but for Dr. Lincoln Hooker, and maybe Ms. Pepin could make a note of this just to help us both remember the FFA, fantastic. Congratulations. Really wonderful. It's reminding me that Youth in Agriculture Day on Beacon Hill at the State House. I would love it if we could, if you could tell us about it ahead of time, maybe a little bit just to say, hey, it's coming up and this is who's going. And because it's really cool to see that it's a huge turnout statewide. And I know that we had students from our school conference.
If I could also, it just made me remind, something I should have had here, so I want to make sure that I give her credit. Senior Lauren Brooks in the Animal Science Department was chosen the Mass CTE Student of the Year for Western Region. And she also sits on Commissioner Randall's Student Agriculture Committee. So she's a member of that too. So
nice.
Give her credit.
Nice. Strong program.
Go on to committee.
Right. Dr. Lincoln Hooker, there's a strategic planning subcommittee report. It's the only one I have for today. Tonight, Dr. Lincoln Hooker and I met last week with Nicole Smith, who's the DESE CTE director, and her team to brief them on what we learned the preliminarily from Mars about the interest or lack thereof in regionalization and the course correction that we will likely be having to make. The Mars consultants also attended. We conveyed the importance of meeting with Commissioner Martinez soon, which Nicole agreed with. And there was also some discussion of the implications of the SVAHS admissions policy, given that a one-year waiver is based on the potential for regionalization.
Facilities report tonight?
There is none. We just reported
Okay.
most recently, the most recent board meeting.
2 weeks ago.
Crystal will go on finance.
No, same as facilities.
Yeah.
Just because it's been 2 weeks.
Right. So we'll go ahead with your finance report. Is that what we're saying?
No, we're gonna skip that one because Crystal.
Oh, because of that. Okay, excuse me. Okay. So you're on.
And I apologize, without a laptop, I'm gonna have to stand up here as well. This presentation, this is your third month seeing most of this. Once again, skip through many of the slides. We really focus on the last couple of slides. I think you also have the packets in front of you, whatever's easier for you to watch up here or follow along the packet. Once I'm done with this short presentation, I will sit back down and we'll go into the actual budget documents. My hope is through my report, we'll have the budget conversation, answer any questions, and in that way, when you have your agenda item under new business around the FY27 budget, this presentation is done. Obviously, I can answer any questions at that point as well. So with that said, again, if I see any relevant slides or any questions that you have from the previous month, please don't be afraid to stop me. Again, I always just like to highlight this particular slide. It represents all of the communities that we have currently with students residing in them. And I tell people out in the community, we serve students from the Vermont border, the New York border, the Connecticut border, and out to Worcester. And as you can see visually, I'm not telling a tale. So it is quite impressive. And the student demographics that we've talked about over the last few months. Last year's class, and what are they doing post-secondary? The comparison between us and Franklin Tech, McKean Tech, and Pathfinder. Just as a reminder, again, we talked about this last month in more detail around the student enrollment. You heard a little bit about it earlier this evening. But again, this is where we're at right now. We're in that mid to upper 580s, as Mr. Bianchi just reported out. Next year, assuming everything goes as planned, we would anticipate an additional 11 students here on campus. So we're beginning to push that 600 student overall. And then you can see the following years, it really begins to level out. And we've talked about the implication of a leveling out enrollment on the budget. We've talked about the admissions, sort of the vision around capacity, okay, and what does it mean to be at capacity. And I think that conversation has been great around the budget and long term, and what are we doing? As a reminder for those out in the audience, our current admissions policy, we're allowed to take 150 students a year. If we have 150 students per year times the 4 years, that gets us to 600 students. You take your 600 students, divide by the 15 programs that we have, that gives us an average of about 10 students per shop, per grade per shop. And then these are the different hypotheticals, okay? And I think we're well aware at the board level that 600 students does not fill all of the programs. So then how do we remain sustainable? And that's been sort of that philosophical conversation we've had over the last many years. The only addition to this slide was this third option. It's not an option, but just again, another scenario. And that was looking at those other Western Mass folk schools from the previous slide. That's the McKean Tech, Franklin Tech, and Pathfinder. What is their average enrollment per shop? And if we took that average and played it out here at Smith, what would it look like? We would be at about 680 students here on campus. That would equate to what those other schools are doing. So that's what that slide represents. And again, visually, I think this is a great slide just to pat everybody on the back. Dates back to the late 70s. Okay, we were well over 600 students back in the late 70s. As you can see, it sort of dropped. It has its ups and downs. Back around 2014 or so, when Mr. Bianchi and I first started here, we were hovering around 440 students. And since that point, we are now, again, pushing 600 students. So it's been a great ride. Unfortunately, again, based on the current admissions policy, we're going to begin to flatline unless we change the admissions policy. As a reminder, the red lines represent the number of non-resident students. So about 80% of our enrollment comes from outside of Northampton. That's what drives the budget. And we all know the implications when it comes to capital improvement. You know, the big onus on the city of Northampton, even though there's only 20% of our population comes from the city of Northampton. In these other lines, refer back to that previous slide around that admissions, okay, discussion and around capacity. This green line would be if we filled every single slot in the vocational programs, it would be 720 students. So what would that look like? And we've never been there. Okay, that would be the challenge. I'm not sure if we could actually physically house 720 students on campus. The biggest issue is we don't have enough academic space for all of those students. This orangey salmon color line represents the 680 students. That is, again, that comparison with the other Western Mass folk schools. What would that look like? And again, we've never been to that point. Could we get to that point? That's the conversation we can have. And then obviously 600 is what we're aiming at under the current admissions policy. This slide, I'm just going to hammer home briefly again this evening. Sort of talked about it, I think, under Mr. Bianca's report. The challenge here, this represents the enrollment trends statewide and in the 4 Western Mass counties. Statewide, next year's 8th grade down to next year's 1st grade. So that continuum from 8th grade down to 1st grade. Statewide, we're anticipating a 10% drop in enrollment statewide. When you look at Hampshire County, again, you can look grade by grade, okay, but overall from 8th grade down to 1st grade in Hampshire County, it's just shy of 34% drop that same period of time. That is very, very scary when you're looking at how do you project enrollment, which then ties to a budget. That's just Hampshire County. Hampden County is not quite as severe, okay, same span of time, you're looking at about a 1.3% drop. Franklin County is about a 12% drop. Several years ago, Franklin County was way out in front of the curve. They were having the very steep cliff that they were going up. So the fact that a 12% drop doesn't sound too scary, and just remember where they were a few years ago. And Berkshire County is almost an 8% drop. So the point is, you saw that slide of Massachusetts, where our students are coming from. Our students are coming from these 4 counties, and these 4 counties, there's less students. And when we have less students to draw from, back to Dr. Spencer Robinson's question around the admissions, is that why we saw less applicants? That's a good question. We need to answer that at some point.
Dr. Lincoln Hooker, when you shared when you made your budget presentation to the faculty, was this slide included in it? And were there any comments or questions or observations about it?
Yeah, actually, I may have misspoke. The slide itself was in there, but I'm not sure if this data was updated. It was there last year's data. This data was updated for the board, your last meeting.
Yeah.
The trend is still the same trend, but the numbers have been updated. So they saw this as well last year. So this is nothing new. The faculty has seen this.
I mean, was the Hampshire County number as high last year?
No, this jumped out this year.
So maybe it would be worth resharing that with the faculty when you have an opportunity and when it makes sense to do it.
Right. Good point. And again, sort of our long-term vision we've been talking about over the last several years, really focusing on the Aggie in our school name, and how do we continue to increase the concentrations in animal science, looking at horticulture, so on and so forth. This really has been our focus over the last several years. And then it's just a great reminder with the increased enrollment, all of the staffing that we've hired over the last several years, all of the facility improvements that have been supported by the board. There's just the laundry list, multiple slides of facility improvements that we've been able to accomplish over the last several years. And then these next few slides talk about the ag complex and how we've taken, building by building by building and sort of renovated it, renewed it, gave it a new use. Okay, so several slides on all of that. And then obviously debuilding is sort of the big discussion. So now we get into the budget. This slide did not change from last month. This just represents the overall budget number. This does include all of the indirect costs that go back to the city. I just want to remind the board, reminded the staff as well. When we look at a $15 million budget, that's the proposed budget in front of you this evening. It's not $15 million that we have in the operating budget to educate the students and pay the staff. Okay, there's many, many indirect costs that go back to the city. So I don't want to say this is misleading, but I don't want anybody to think that we have a $15 million budget to operate the actual school. Net school spending, I took time last month to really get the board updated on what is net school spending, where do those figures come from, okay? That really focuses on the students from Northampton that come here this month. And just a visual representation of what that looks like. As I mentioned before, the non-resident tuition, the 80% of the students that come from outside of Northampton is driven by the non-resident tuition rate. This is set by the state, not set by the board. I think that's a misnomer out there. Okay, the Board of Trustees does not set the tuition rate. The state does. As you can see, we have a slight increase. A couple months ago, you weren't seeing that. So yes, there was a small blessing, and that rate did go up a little bit. Some of the highlights and headwinds that we're sort of dealing with, okay, and we really sort of previewed this last month. Let's see here. The actual operating budget that's in front of you that we're going to talk about in great detail from this current fiscal year that we're finishing up to next year, we're forecasting a 3.79% increase, okay, which is very, very modest. And as you know, and we're going to get into it this evening, many of the expenses far surpass a 3.79% increase. So that's the challenge that we were faced. And how do we provide a balanced budget that's only increasing by less than 4%. Right now, and what you'll see, we followed through with not projecting an increase in non-resident students. Okay, so what we budgeted for this year to what we're projecting for next year, we're not going to increase that projected the number of non-resident students. And why? And we talked about that last month. Okay, we actually didn't bring in the number of students this current fiscal year that we were budgeting, so we were short. We don't want that to happen again. So we do anticipate that increase of students. But let's not budget for that. So that way, when we do meet that threshold, that money can go into that tuition revolving account, and we can begin to rebuild that, which, as we talked about last month, is one of our priorities. So that is one of the assumptions. Right now, you'll see the budget. We're not anticipating an increase. We're not budgeting an increase in non-resident students. Also, the other reminder, the Northampton transportation budget, which cannot be covered in the operating budget. So this is the buses that we pay for to transport the Northampton students. We have to pay for that out of the non-resident revolving account, okay? And based on that contract, that takes about 8 students, non-resident students, for us to cover that contract. So we have to make sure that we're providing that buffer. And then just another reminder, and I'll point this out when we get into the budget documents, this doesn't right now directly impact the operating budget, but we are hearing at the federal level. There may be cutbacks in federal grants. One of them happens to be Title I. Title I, we're hearing, might be a reduction of about 25%. And that particular grant impacts a lot of our PD, professional development, and we have some paraprofessionals listed in that particular grant. So the point for me to share this tonight is that, God forbid, that particular grant is cut back. We then have to have a decision around what staff can we maintain in that budget, in that grant. Can we absorb any of those positions into the operating budget, or do we lose those positions? Okay. I really want to thank the board last month providing myself and the leadership team some great guidance and great priorities. As you know, we had a budget deficit that we had to close. I'm very, very thankful to have that guidance and leadership from the board as far as what is your vision, what is your priorities, and what you'll see tonight in the budget. I think we were able to fulfill those particular priorities. So number one, we want to avoid that fiscal cliff that many of our neighboring communities are dealing with. Okay. And we believe that in this budget that we're presenting tonight, we are avoiding that cliff. Okay, we're not falling off of it tonight. And I think through this budget, some of the decisions and vision that we have, we're not going to fall off that cliff in the next 3 to 5 years. Fingers crossed. I already mentioned we need to reinvest in that tuition revolving account. A few years ago, we were always north of $2 million in that particular account. Right now, we're down to about 800,000, I think it was. That's not the right trend that we want with that particular account. So we need to begin to get money back into that account so we can be more stable and sustainable in the long term. Lastly, not lastly, but the extraordinary maintenance, and we talked about that particular budget line last month. That's that rainy day fund, that is that informal capital improvement account. And initially, we were looking at a big budget deficit, and that particular line was a zero. We weren't going to fund that particular line, which is, again, not good practice. So one of the priorities from the board, and we were able to follow through, you will see that we are funding that particular line. A reduction from this current fiscal year, but there is money in that particular line with the budget that you can see tonight. And then lastly, but this really should be number one, how can we minimize the impact on students? You know, we are here to teach students, as Mrs. Sabona said, truly empower all students to choose what door they want to go through and make sure that they're a whole, complete student. So how do we minimize that? So what you're going to see on the revenue side, many of these are direct recommendations from the board last month. We talked about adult ed. Adult ed is doing a wonderful job. They really are expanding all of the programs. But there's no tie from the adult ed revenue that they're making back to the day operation of the school. Yes, there's been some benefits. Okay, they've been able to help support in AgMech as an example. When we received all of the new welding equipment, AgMech actually paid for all of the electrical infrastructure upgrades. That's one example. You're going to see.
You mean adult ed paid for all of them?
Yes, did I misspeak? Yes. Adult ed paid for the electrical upgrades in AgMech when we got the new welding equipment. Yes. So you're going to see in the budget, the utilities budget line is through the roof, okay? So our hope is to look at adult ed and work out a deal with adult ed that some revenue from adult ed comes over to, technically will go into the tuition revolving account, which will help, again, rebuild that particular line. It's very difficult to try to figure out a transfer from adult ed into the operating budget to directly impact the utilities, but this will be that roundabout way that, we will budget utilities the way we normally do in the budget, but then through the back channel, we'll get money from adult ed into the tuition revolving.
And adult ed is using utilities.
Correct.
At night.
The lights are on.
So essentially they're, it's not so much going back to the day, but it's not taking money from the day program to run the night program. It's having the evening program pay for it.
Exactly. Yeah. Okay. So that's that first one. The next one, to the admissions policy. I do want to give credit to the faculty. During that faculty meeting, talking about the admissions policy, do we increase the enrollment? There was some great conversation and great feedback that we walked away with. And there was great conversation at the board as well. What we are recommending is not touching the incoming freshman class, maintaining that enrollment at 150 students. Okay, we saw some potential drawbacks if we try to increase the incoming freshmen. But looking at the next year sophomore, okay, that incoming sophomore class, is there a way to go from 150 to 155? At that point, they're already placed into the shops. And what you're hearing through the exploratory process, as you know, more kids, the same number of shops, the same exploratory model. We've had more difficulties recently trying to get all students into the top choices. It's causing a lot of issues in that freshman year. So the thought is freshman year exploratory, the kids get into the particular shops. And as we know, students move back to the home districts, changes are made. At that point, we know that there's some shops that have openings. So going into the sophomore year, they wouldn't be an exploratory, but we could actually advertise to the communities that we have, this seat open in this particular shop, that opening in this particular shop. Students can apply to come in sophomore year for those particular openings in those particular shops. So we thought that would minimize a lot of that heartache around exploratory. It also minimizes some of the academic struggles that we were having with some of the academic requirements freshman year. So this was a way to slowly increase that enrollment without directly impacting that freshman experience. So what you're going to hear probably through subcommittee, but through the updated admissions policy, we are truly advocating that we increase that sophomore class to 155. Recommendation from the leadership team and myself, looking at that Northampton cohort, maintaining 30 students, okay? So in essence, that means an additional 5 students from the outside of Northampton would be the recommendation. And again, this change would directly impact that tuition revolving account. So if we're bringing in 5 additional non-resident students above and beyond what we're budgeting, that's automatically helping us, again, with one of those priorities, which is to revitalize that particular account. Questions on the revenue side? On the expenses. So the first one, we talked about it last month. Is there a way to review and potentially eliminate or reduce under-enrolled athletic programs and or clubs? So we looked at that, and I want to thank the input and a lot of the research that Mr. Sabonis provided as the athletic director. What we are recommending, and you'll see this in the budget when we get there, is reviewing wrestling. And the recommendation on the table is that we do eliminate wrestling as a Smith vocational varsity program. Now, you heard from Mr. Sabonis, I'm going to remind it to the board, we are currently in a co-op with Northampton with wrestling. So if this is approved, I think that the next conversation would be between the athletic directors. Perhaps the co-op can continue, but the host and guest roles would flip. So would Northampton be willing and want to take on the host as wrestling, so then they wear the Northampton uniform? The current co-op agreement right now is that we basically cover the head coach and most of the expenses for wrestling. Northampton pays for one of the assistant coaches for wrestling. Can we reverse that agreement? So if Northampton wants to take the host role, we could then cover the cost of an assistant coach. So that's the recommendation that we're making coming out of athletics.
Did I see Smith Academy listed as a co-op partner also?
Yes. They're a part of the co-op, but their piece of, if you put the players into a pie, their sliver is very, very small.
And I would say, I think it was 2018 or 19, Northampton was the host and we were the co-op. So this has gone back and forth a couple times.
And I'll point that out in the budget. You'll see what the potential savings that we're projecting there. We also talked last month at some of the other co-ops. Okay, there's one particular co-op I kind of referenced, and we are in agreement and we're recommending. You're not going to see a direct impact in the budget because it's not set in stone yet. But I want the board to know that we do want to work with a particular host school in revisiting that particular co-op agreement. And if there's a way to rework that agreement, great. That would be a financial savings for the school. If not, I'm in the position to let the principal and athletic director know we need to walk away from that particular co-op. Okay. So you won't see that savings in the budget, but that could be, again, a potential savings if and when that's reworked. Staffing, we talked about this last month. The ideal is that if we have to reduce staff, try to do that through attrition, through retirements. That will save on potential unemployment costs and whatnot. Obviously, morale, it's never good to lay people off. It's never a good feeling. Based on upcoming retirements, the recommendation is on the vocational side. There's a retirement in the electrical program. The recommendation is that we do not replace that particular position. Same thing with plumbing. There's a retirement coming up in plumbing. That's a 3-person shop as well. We would not replace that position. So those 2 programs will go down to 2 instructors, like the majority of the shops on campus. And then lastly, the director of security, Mr. Brown, he's also retiring, and we would not replace that position. So that would be the direct personnel reductions. Again, no unemployment, no layoffs. It's simply the savings through retirements. One of the priorities that we've had for many years, again, back to the ag complex, okay, and really trying to bolster what we're doing with the farm. It's been a challenge with the facilities director, farm director in one position. Tim Smith has a very daunting task to do 2 full-time jobs. He's also retiring, and the recommendation through the budget, we're making this work. The recommendation is that upon his retirement, we take that position and we split it to 2 full-time positions. We'll have a full-time facilities director and a full-time farm director. So that is budgeted, and I'll put that out in the budget. Another priority, this isn't really an expense, it's sort of the inverse of an expense with an increase. So looking at the materials and the supplies, we knew there were some budget lines initially in that initial deficit that we were cutting and cutting and cutting. We felt there were certain areas, certain shops that we had to bolster a little bit. So we actually have increased their supply lines from this current fiscal year. I'll point those out when we get there. So you'll see that. And then I already mentioned, one of the goals was to actually get some money back into the accelerated maintenance line. The recommendation that you're going to see this evening is $123,495. Okay, it's an odd number, okay, but that gets us to a balanced budget. And that sounds like a lot of money. I want to remind the board and the community that's a 9.9% reduction from this fiscal year. So it's still a pretty steep reduction, but it gives us something in that account. God forbid something happens on campus and we need to repair something, there is some money for it.
If there's not enough money in that line this next fiscal year, what line do you think it'll come from?
Tuition revolving is really the next step.
So we'll whittle that back down again.
Correct. Yeah. So that's, as I said, a brief update. I think that will be a great segue into your budget documents, which you should also have in your packets. So that was the narrative. If I can try to show you in the budget what that looks like. You should really have these 2. You have a single page document, and then you have a packet that's stapled together. We'll start with the single page. I won't really go line by line, but this is the official budget categories that we have to report to Jesse. If you want to see that perspective, and it kind of breaks it down by administration, instructional, student services, maintenance, insurance, and benefits. So if you wanted to kind of see, the percentage for any of those cost areas, is a nice 1-pager to kind of see that. The big increase, okay, I went through and looked at the percent changes between all of those cost centers. I just want to highlight insurance and benefits. From this fiscal year to next fiscal year is a 70% increase, which is crazy. You see instructional, if you do the math, the instructional from this current fiscal year to next fiscal year.
Sorry, I was having trouble finding where. Can you go back to where that increase
Oh, for insurance and benefits?
Yeah.
So again, this one-page document. If you look at the
Yeah,
total
yeah.
for insurance and benefits for FY '26, that's $52,285, up to $89,000. That's a 70%, almost a 71%.
Is that health insurance mainly?
It's a combination of health insurance, also different salaries that support, that the city supports us with. So it's a combination of.
Thank you.
I want to point out instructional, same exercise from FY '26, that was $9,154,828 to the recommended budget that you have in front of you this evening will be $9,312,261. That's only, and I put only in quotation marks, of 1.72% increase. And I want to remind the board that is because of the reduction of staff that you saw on my slide. Okay, so just trying to clarify that.
It's almost a level funded budget.
Correct. Okay, so you can, at your leisure, look at the other comparisons. So now, the packet that you have in front of you, I'll take a little bit more time. The first page is sort of the cover sheet. And again, the comparison from FY '26 to what we're projecting and what I'm recommending to the board this evening for FY '27. At the very top, you see the tuition. You see the number 455. That shows you, as I discussed earlier, we are budgeting the same number of non-resident students. That's why you see 455 in the current fiscal year. You see 455 next year. You see the tuition rate difference. As I showed you earlier, the tuition rate is going up slightly. You see the difference. And then you can kind of go line by line and you can look the school choice, Chapter 70, on and on and on. The Munis number, about a third of the way down, almost halfway down, we are projecting a budget of $12,247,451. That is the official budget number that makes the school run, besides all the indirect costs that go back to the city, okay, which I recognize our cost to support the school. Okay, I understand that. Okay, and then you can see all the other lines. Okay, one thing I just want to point out, I mentioned the Northampton transportation budget. That's the last line there. $182,585 is what we're projecting for the transportation contract to transport the Northampton students. So again, there's a pretty clear one-page summary of our incoming revenue and the outgoing expenses. Now, if we want to get into line by line, and again, as a reminder to the board, you have line item authority. If there's any line that I don't address that you want to address, by all means, please ask. I only highlighted a few lines that tie back to the presentation, but if there's any other section that you want to discuss, please. First section are the school committee expenses, so the board of trustees. You can kind of go through. There's not a whole lot of changes there. Okay, I have really nothing to report out there. The next section is the superintendent office. I do want to point out, I haven't shared it in the presentations, but a big increase is for the NEAC, the big visit that we have. As a reminder, we were scheduled to have that this spring, and we were able to advocate to NEAC that we postpone it to the fall to get it out of this fiscal year. So now that it's in the fall, the new fiscal year with the budget, it's an additional $15,000 that we have to budget for that visit.
You have to pay the piper.
Yes. So I just want the board to understand, yes, the money has to be set aside.
Yeah.
That's all I had for page one, as far as highlights I want to share with the board. If you have any other questions, please. On page two, I had nothing. That's the business office, human resources, legal, and then we get into sort of some of the curriculum expenditures. Really nothing to report out on. No questions, we can move to page three. Most of page three, you see the department head stipends. At the bottom of page three, that spills over to page four, that is the principals category. I do want to highlight, you're going to see one that says salary hopper, and you see under FTE is one, you see a salary change where you see the FY27 is budgeted $52,391. That particular line, you can see it, the big drop there. That is the savings in not replacing the Mr. Brown, the Director of Security salary line. So that's where you see the savings there. There's no other questions. We can move to page 4.
Is that also why there's a decrease in the life longevity line?
Yes.
Yes.
Page 4, I had nothing that jumped out at me. It was the continuation of the principals category, the building technology category, and then the beginning of teacher salaries.
Building technology is Josh.
Yes,
Chair of IT.
correct. There's no questions. We can move to page 5. I do just want to point out on page 5 towards the top, okay, that continuation of the teacher salaries. The 2 lines, I think there's probably in your packet as well. There's 2 typos under FTE. You see there's one FTE category that says 3, and you see the FY27 budget draft is 180,663. That should be 2 FTEs in that salary. And then a little further down, the same exercise. There's a department that says 3 FTE. That should be 2. The salary is accurate. It's $214,994. Okay. Those 2 departments, one happens to be plumbing, one happens to be electrical. So as I mentioned in the presentation, the recommendation is that we do not replace those 2 retirements, and you can see it reflected in the budget. I have nothing else as far as highlighting on page 5, unless there were any questions.
What is, so it says Sal Techna, what's that an abbreviation of?
Those are our special ed teachers.
Wait, all the,
The 6 FTE, those are the 6 special.
no, just that, that it's in
What, the
all
name?
those lines, yeah, what is it?
That's just the set name, salary
That's all I think.
technical would be my thought. Desi makes the,
Of course it
Career
does.
technical ed.
Oh,
and unfortunately, it's, mayors can only handle so many letters, so we get an abbreviation.
Thank you.
If no other questions on page 5, we can move to page 6. At the top of page 6, again, I've talked about this over the last few months. I just want to show the board the representation of that Title I grant. So you see a column that says grants, and you can see what we're budgeting for grants. All of those figures that you see in that particular column is not impacting the operating budget that you're voting on tonight. But it does show you that we have grant money set aside for various lines. So the second line down at the top of page 6, that account description, which can be misleading at times, it says para, sped, Title I. You see 3 FTEs, and you can see the grant amount. So again, those particular paraprofessionals we are not covering in the operating budget, which is why you see no dollar figures in the FY27 budget. Is covered in grants. If that grant happens to be reduced, now we're back to a conversation, how do we deal with those 3 positions? I just want to show the board where that but where that lives inside the budget.
If the grants reduce, it doesn't necessarily mean the elimination of those paraprofessional positions.
We have to find a way to make it work
It
in
could
the
be
budget.
if we want to keep them, the money's got to come from somewhere else.
Correct. Yes. Besides that, you see a section for the library, you see a section for staff PD, and then you see the section that begins with all the textbooks. I had nothing that really jumped out at me. Did you have any questions? Page 7. Page 7 and all of the supplies and materials. And I just want to highlight, I mentioned in the presentation that there were some departments that really wanted to try to support more with their supplies. And I just want to identify those for the board. About almost halfway down, you see other supplies farm. We've upped that particular supply line. That is the operation of the farm. That is not the instructional side for animal science. So that is animal feed and animals themselves and everything that we have to spend on maintaining the farm comes out of that particular line.
Those costs have gone up.
Exactly. And with the pocket pet lab, with the small animals that we have now, we need to make sure that we're supporting them. So that's that line. The very next line, you can see a slight increase for collision. It's another high cost area, just talking about paint is one example. A little bit further down, you see electrical. You see a slight increase for that particular department. A little bit.
Same thing with supplies.
Yes. Now that doesn't, in that supply, you'll see later on, if I can remember to point it out, when it comes to campus work, that line that you see does not support the campus work. That is actually covered in the facilities, the custodial section, okay? But that is materials and supplies for the shop to teach in the cubicles.
And those materials cost more.
Exactly. Yep. Same explanation a little bit further down for plumbing. You see a slight increase in plumbing. Again, that is to support the instruction inside the shop. That does not cover all of the plumbing upgrades on campus. That's covered, again, through the custodial budget. The very next line below plumbing is ag mech. You see a slight increase in ag mech. Trying to support that program and rebuild that program as well. So those were the areas that we wanted to try to support a little bit more. We wish we could support all of them more, but those are the areas I wanted to highlight.
Superintendent, what does CJ stand for?
That's that was criminal justice, now public safety.
Public safety.
Okay. On page 8, I had nothing to highlight, but again, you can see instructional equipment. That's our copier contract at the top of the page. You see general supplies, school-wide. We're not changing. That's level funded. And then you get into dues and memberships for some of the departments and shops. So those could be student licenses and whatnot that we cover. Then you move into, towards the bottom, instructional hardware. And then other instructional hardware at the very bottom of page 8.
So some of the dues and licenses have dropped. That just.
We always budget true costs, so not everybody's license is up every year. So it could be that they're on a 3-year cycle, 2-year cycle, and we also base it on the actual number of students that year who are going to get the license.
Okay. Moving to page 9. I did not highlight anything, but just to kind of review what you see on page 9. At the top is the software budget campus-wide. And then we move into guidance and the cost to support our guidance department between personnel and supplies. The school psychologist. And that's predominantly what that page is. At the bottom, and it spills over a little bit to page 10, is the school nurse in their budget. Yeah, nothing to really report out there. On page 10, the first full section you see there, that is the athletic budget. And just to highlight, based on the conversation I shared in my report, third line down of the athletic budget. And let me actually, before I share that, I just want to clarify what you see with the athletic director, 50%. It's not that we have a half a person. We know that Mrs. Sabonis is a full person. He's a full-time job. But because he has those 2 positions, we actually put half of his salary in as the athletic director. The other half as a co-op coordinator, I believe, resides in a guidance category. I failed to mention that. So that's how we account for his salary. But in the athletic budget, third line down, you see the Unit D coaches, and you see a decrease there. And as you heard, we're recommending that we eliminate wrestling. 2 lines further down, that's the contract services, officials, and police. You see a drastic increase. That's not directly only officials and police. The drastic increase, there is a slight increase. We want more police coverage, but the biggest cost there is the athletic trainer. We're in a contract with Mass General, and that contract was sort of this escalating cost. Early on, they were going to cover the majority of the salary. And as time goes on, we're inheriting more of that salary.
That's like a 120% increase.
Yes.
So that's what next door?
Well, it's no longer next door. It's
They don't cover it. Yeah.
They used to cover an athletic,
So where is it based?
Mass General,
Meaning
in Boston.
Boston?
So they oversee their athletic trainer program statewide, and schools can contract with them for an athletic trainer.
And they raised the cost?
The contract was, I forget,
Did you get a 3-year contract with, and the increments were outlined?
Wow. Do you think that's a reflection of just the outrageous, exorbitant healthcare increases generally?
I don't know if it was that or just.
I mean, they used to cover it entire, Cooley Dickinson used to cover it for the districts entirely, and then
there's community outreach.
after they merged with Western, Western took over. They said they wouldn't do it any longer.
So,
Because that has to help with their bottom line.
Can you hear us?
And especially if it's all districts across the state chipping in, that's revenue for them, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
and so what, yes, what we get for services from this athletic trainer, they're at all the athletic events, I assume?
The home events that we need by MIA policy, that we need to have an athletic trainer, yes, she's at those events, and I believe she's at some practices.
Yeah, so I can speak on this a little bit. So she comes every day to campus and prepares kids for practices and then stays for events where it's mandated that she stays. So football, wrestling, boys lacrosse. But yeah, she's here every day and usually, is interacting with the kids. And she's done some stuff for me around physicals and tracking of stuff in the athletics office that relates to healthcare, which helps out our nursing staff, I should say. And myself as well.
Are you satisfied with the services you're getting, Anthony?
The trainer that we have assigned to us I can't speak highly enough of her. She's great. Absolutely fantastic. Would love to find a way to keep her in the fold somehow, some way.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
What fraction of a position is it for her, do you know?
I'm not sure exactly how. She has a full-time job outside of this particular position. So I'm not sure exactly what that looks like as far as her day-to-day and percentage of hours, but she does have a 40-hour-a-week job that she is working at a corporation. Yep.
There are other models out there. We talked about it internally, and ideally we have an athletic trainer. And if there's a way that we have a dedicated athletic trainer, that's probably the best model. But we have to keep reviewing that.
And we have one of the smallest athletic programs of all the schools in the state. So for larger schools, that number is going to be much
I think
bigger.
a larger school, it may be beneficial for them to have a full-time athletic trainer on staff.
Oh, they hire it.
Mm-hmm. So if I can, so I have that information as far as across the state, what it looks like. And the bigger the school district, what Dr. Lincoln Hooker just said, the more likely it is that they have a full-time trainer on staff who may only be performing athletic trainer duties, but also is typically a full-time employee in some capacity, and then is contracted hourly to do athletic training when it's needed based upon sport requirements.
Oh, that's interesting.
So it might be, I'm sorry, Dr. Barner, go right ahead.
Okay, so just to speak to Northampton, we decided to go into contract with Mass General, but we went out to bid before we did that. However, after that contract is over, it would be smart for the district to actually hire their own trainer because the cost is increasing every year. But right now, it's manageable.
Right. And that's
who we're with also right now.
Yeah, that person could have bring that value that Tony just described to the district if there's more they can work.
Okay, so that's the athletic budget. Then you see other student activities. So that's assemblies, FFA, skills. You can see all the groups here that we help support. Nothing really to report out there. The next section that then spills over to the next page on page 11 are the custodial expenses. This is where I just want to highlight, before you move to page 11, at the bottom of page 10, you see a 1 FTE. You see that salary. That is for Mr. Smith. And then his replacement.
Where are we?
The bottom of page 10.
here on the 11's got up.
Okay, got it, thank you. Which line is it?
It's
Down the bottom.
four up from the bottom, the
Yep.
1 FTE, you see the salary.
Yes,
That salary represents Mr. Smith and his time that he has before he retires, and then his replacement as the facilities director.
so that's splitting the two positions.
Well, that's basically for the facilities director.
Okay,
And that facilities director would be some of Mr. Smith and then his replacement.
Okay.
On the top of, well, not top, on page 11, the upper half of the page, you see a salary supervisor description, you see 1 FTE, you see no money budgeted this current year, you see money budgeted for FY '27. That would be what we're setting aside for the new farm director position.
So, right here. So does that mean you anticipate having to hire for his position for facilities at a higher rate than where he is?
We are looking at what the unit H contract is and rather be conservative and
We're
ideally,
anticipating an overlap
Oh,
of training.
Oh,
He would help
okay.
train his replacement.
so which one is the facilities director and which one is the farm director?
This is.
facilities at the bottom of page 10
The $100,000 is fine.
and farm, yeah, that's the new position, which is why you see it wasn't funded in FY '26.
And that number's a placeholder, because depending on who you age.
Towards the bottom of page 11, this is just,
So the line directly below that is a decrease.
that is the farm tech position. So I believe in FY '26, we were budgeting for 4 and we were down to 3 FTEs. So you see a reduction there.
Thank you.
Towards the bottom of page 11, I just want to highlight again the escalating cost of utilities. And I just want the board to see this and the community to see this. We were budgeting this fiscal year $340,000 for utilities. That consists of cell phones, electricity, water, sewer, storm service, stormwater, trash removal, telephone, gasoline, all of those categories. Budgeting $340,000 this year. This fiscal year budget that you're voting on this evening, we're budgeting $398,570. That's over a 17% increase, which is
Highway
difficult.
And you didn't increase gasoline, which is interesting. So is that a fixed
or natural.
We're just looking at we were basing it on the current usage.
current usage?
Correct. And as of right now, we're at $12,067.
So hopefully the prices come down soon.
Yeah, for all of us.
Okay. On page 12, you see the category.
Dr. Lincoln Hooker, what's the RNAM stand for?
Say that again.
Bottom of page 11, RNM Round, RNM Street.
Repair and maintenance.
Oh, repair and maintenance. Okay, thank you.
On page 12, you see the maintenance of the buildings, that category. And that's where I was talking a little while ago for the plumbing material supplies and the electrical. You can see where we budget those particular costs as campus-wide improvements or repairs. A little bit further down, again, I just want to point out the extraordinary maintenance. You see that particular line being funded at $123,495. You can see what it was budgeted this fiscal year. So there's that reduction, but at least we have money set aside.
10%.
And then another category, also on page 12, towards the bottom, I just want the board to be aware, is the employment separation costs. That is with pending retirements, depending on the retirement. Sometimes they have some kind of sick time or vacation time buyout, benefit, part of the contracts. And you can see the money that we have to set aside with those pending retirements.
So we don't pay unemployment with layoffs, but we have the buyouts with the
Correct.
retirements.
You do, speaking of unemployment, that's the next line down, you see at the bottom, we have to set that money aside. On page 13, which should be the last page, is other insurance, liability insurance that we have to cover. And then as you can see, on the very bottom, it's the expense total and the revenue total. It goes back to the first page. You see it balances it out. So what you see in front of you is a balanced budget. And based on the presentation earlier, we are forecasting money going into the tuition revolving account, which is great. And we're able to hopefully support the priorities that the board set last month. So with that, any questions? I know you have an official vote later on, but any questions around the presentation or the budget documents?
Now, how much last year was spent that was used from grants and then tuition revolving, just as a comparison?
For, that's like
For the
25
current year.
current year for grants and,
For grants and tuition revolving, just so we can compare.
I don't have that available, I'm sorry, but I can,
Just curious whether we're relying more on grants, more on.
So the tuition revolving column that you see in the budget document, that is the transportation contract. The grants, that's a good question.
if I may add, with the transportation, we did have to add a van this year for a student. That does not reflect in what we budgeted, but the board did vote to add that van. The grants, we do carry forward, grants from FY '25 remaining and '26.
Okay.
So I'm happy to share that. It is in my presentation that I provided last month. But I'll be happy, I'll update it.
So tuition revolving is only ever used for transportation for Northampton.
That we have to set aside, that's a guarantee every year. What else comes out of the tuition revolving would be a lot of our capital projects. So all of the work that we did with the horticulture building, all the other ag complex, a lot of the money came from that particular account.
So the only operating is coming from.
Correct. Yeah. There's 1 year in our tenure. I think it was my last year's principal and assistant principal, where it was one of those years that the tuition rate went down. And the superintendent and the board at the time voted to, rather than make severe cuts to balance the budget, they actually went into the tuition revolving to balance the budget that way. We have not done that. So.
I don't have a question, but an observation that's apart from the salary lines, which are that's the great majority of our budget. They're all level funded, and for any of us who manage a household budget, if our lines are level funded, we are getting less for our money. And so this is across the board, throughout the school in all of those lines.
Yes.
It's unfortunate.
Right.
Okay, thank you, Andy.
Thank you.
Moving forward under new business, may I have a motion and a second to approve funding from the trustees account to cover the cost of the Smith Vocational Alumni Hall of Fame inductees dinners at the June 2026 Alumni Association dinner.
So moved.
Second.
Can I
Please.
provide some context? I'll apologize, but I won't apologize. Sharing my professional opinion on this for 1 second. My feeling, my recommendation to the trustees is to not support this particular motion. I feel strongly that the Alumni Association should cover the costs of inductees. I would recommend that the Alumni Association cover the cost of the inductee and his or her guest. If they have other family and friends, they should pay a ticket. That's just been my experience at other award programs across the state. And I would go as far to say, I would recommend that the board helps host and oversee, or at least empower the administrative team to maybe have our own alumni induction ceremony, separate from the Alumni Association, where we can advertise and publicize and celebrate our alumni and do that on campus. So I feel, advocating for the trustees, I feel bad that the trustees are expected to pay for dinners for inductees for an association that I feel should support themselves in
I'm fairly sure I understand your rationale for just paying for the inductee and one guest. but I'd like to hear more about your rationale for the administrative leadership team having, or am I understanding you're saying identifying its own inductees into the alumni?
So the Alumni Hall of Fame model, I want to give Mr. Bianca a lot of credit. And this is an idea that came from the school. And we had our committee, that was formed, thank you to the board, identifying those committee members. We've met, we've identified that. And the vision always was to tie that to the Alumni Association and with the dinner. We thought that'd be a great way to bolster the strength of the Alumni Association. At our last Alumni Hall of Fame inductee subcommittee, we learned that the association was unwilling or unable to pay for the tickets for the inductees and their families. So they were asking the board to pay for them. And my feeling is the board, you have the right to vote on it. I'm just voicing my opinion. I would recommend that, again, it's the association covers the cost of the inductee and the guest. And if that's not possible, I would be willing to help oversee a ceremony that we do here on campus, because they're going to be recognized in the school in the main hallway. So I fear this is a slippery slope for the trustees, that the trustees will be expected to pay for these tickets every single year.
So what's the relationship between the association and the subcommittee? Who is the subcommittee? And what's the relationship between the two?
So we have 2 Smith alum on the committee. The other committee members is myself, Mr. Bianca, we have Mr. Parks, Mr. Quadro is your board rep. I believe that's all the committee.
And that's the subcommittee?
That's the committee that oversees and it actually votes on who the inductees are.
Okay. And
So-
what's the name of that?
It's the Smithbrook Alumni Hall of Fame Inductee Committee.
Okay. And it's different from the Alumni Association?
Correct.
Okay. So the committee is the one that identifies the honorees, and the association supports that. But now they're wanting the trustees, or that's trustees, which line would this come from? The trustees line? Okay. So the trustees to pay for the whole dinner? Is that what this motion is?
No, it's just to cover the cost of the particular
the inductees,
inductees
okay.
and their guests.
And you're saying no to that? Or you're saying yes to one inductee and one guest? Or you're saying, let us put on a dinner that we can afford?
I would recommend that the association covers the cost of the dinner for the inductee and his or her guest. If they have other guests, then that inductee should pay for those particular tickets. Because all the other alumni who go to that dinner, they pay for the tickets.
Okay.
So to ask the trustees to cover the cost of the inductees, I think is poor practice long-term.
Yeah.
I think it's a very little cost for the association to cover. But how many inductees do we have? It's typically 3 to 5 inductees in a given year. So we're not talking major money. I think it'd be great for the association. There was an attempt by the school to support the Alumni Association, market the Alumni Association, get more individuals to the dinner. So we saw a lot of benefit for the association, which is great. We want to bolster the alumni.
Right.
I just felt it was, again,
Were you at that meeting when it was decided?
I don't go. I'm not an alum. I don't go to the Alumni Association meetings.
So that was different from your subcommittee? Okay, gotcha.
Could I? I'm
I
sorry.
need a Venn diagram.
Yeah, no, the Alumni Honors Hall of Fame is your program. It's the school's program.
Okay.
So you own it. You own what that celebration looks like. We do with you.
And
I'm
we
not saying you.
designated you to be in charge.
Well,
of that.
when the board approved this in 2019, they empowered those bylaws that exist in that committee. What Dr. Lincoln was trying to say is we wanted to partner with the Alumni
Right.
Hall, the Alumni Association, and we thought that this was a way, instead of us celebrating it, to partner with them that would help everybody. So, but at the end of the day, it's the school. This program is the school's and yours. It's not.
Right.
It's not the Alumni Association's program.
And is that, they're thinking coming to us, if it's our program, then we should pay for the inductees and our guests? And you think that's a bad idea because the slippery slope, meaning other organizations would say, hey, board, you should pay for ours too.
And my observations and experience with other groups, an award winner is not expected to pay for his or her dinner at such an award ceremony.
Right. So somebody's got to pay for it.
Somebody
But
has
it
to pay
shouldn't
for it.
be us because then we could be on the hook for other situations and it'd be hard to draw that line.
Right.
Okay. Thank
I'd
you.
like to say something on it. There's confusion in regards to, there's a brand new association that was started about a year ago or more. They have their own people that belong to that association. Over the years, from my understanding, from past money that was donated to the alumni, that they have money in their account of thousands of dollars that is just sitting there that they have not used or spent or for anything. So I know there's people running that association. They had their own dinner at the Elks that people paid to go to that dinner. So I think there's some confusion between this and that association, or are you talking?
This, the
came
dinner,
up with-
the dinner that they're proposing in front of you is this year's same dinner at the Elks.
It is,
Yes.
okay.
So
Wow.
we had offered having our inductees be present
Yeah.
to help grow the association,
Okay, all right, that
to
clarifies.
hold it together jointly.
Okay, thank you.
All right, can I maybe help
Please.
clarify this some? So, I try to make the Alumni Association meetings as an advisor. Obviously, I'm not an alumni, Mr. Kaling is, and on occasion we both attend just to help them navigate what they're doing. And they're really starting to get organized, and maybe we start stepping aside, seeing that's come to that point. But how this developed was they were looking at the costs of what it's going to cost them to put on this dinner, and the Alumni Hall of Fame inductees would be honored there. And so I think it was a bit of a fishing expedition on their part to say, well, could we maybe get funding, and I'm maybe not using the correct words, to pay for their dinners. So I floated this out at the last meeting, how it got on to the new business, because it wasn't new business last time. And so here we are discussing this, and I understand Dr. Andy's position, but on retrospect, we pay for, out of the trustee account, we pay for the instructional staff, the staff for the whatever, the senior banquet, and is that correct? Right, out of the trustee account. So I didn't see that this was so far a reach, because there may be maybe 5 people at the cost of whatever, say $50. It's $250, and I really don't think it's going to be that much year after year. So, but here we are to discuss this.
So was it your idea?
Go ahead.
Rick, was it your idea?
No, it was not my idea. They, like I said, it was a fishing. This is my opinion, a fishing expedition on their part to float that out there and to see if it catches. So I brought it to the court last meeting.
Okay, so you're like the conduit for it. Got it.
There you go, conduit for it. Thank you. Great word. So what's everybody think? Here.
I'm inclined to take the superintendent's recommendation, basically as a rule. Like if I feel like he's got the long view, he sees things more globally than I can in my role. And so I'm inclined to go with that. Hearing Mr. Kaling say that potentially the Alumni Association does have some funds of its own. It's not that they don't have.
That is true.
Yeah, that they can't do it, then yeah, but, you know, first and foremost, the superintendent for the rationale, the slippery slope, and then if other groups come to us that are equally compelling, what criteria do we use to say we'll pay for these but not those? And the senior banquet, like that is directly related to students. And we want the adults there who work day in and day out with the students to be there if they want to attend. We want to support that.
If you don't mind, I want to go on record. I fully support the Alumni Association, and I've said it my tenure here. This school is very unique. It's my only experience with such a strong alumni passion and support for a school. I've never seen that at a traditional high school. It's amazing. And you see that when you go to the fairs, you see that when you go to the communities, you see that when you have families show up and they talk about how many generations. I really respect how strong of a connection and loyalty that our alumni have to the school. That's a strength that we have. My professional opinion is looking out for the best of the trustees, and I just want to make sure that we're consistent. And so I'm not anti-alumni association. I'm very pro-alumni association. I'm just looking at from the stance of the trustees. Those are my comments.
So we have a motion, a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, we should do a roll call on this.
We have to.
Mr. Kaling?
No.
Mr. Quadro?
No.
Dr. Spencer Robinson?
No.
Mayor Sierra?
No.
Dr. Bonner?
Thank you. The next item on the agenda, I would like to table at this time regarding the potential of closing vocational programs. There's no possible action needed, so I would like to table that.
So I can't speak to it.
No.
Or could I?
A bit further discussion?
Is it going to be brought up again? I think it's, well, at this point, I don't think it's a necessary action to have on our agenda. I think should be tabled indefinitely until if this, we look at another budget season, that it may be something that needs to be addressed at that time. But as far as I'm concerned, I'd like to table it indefinitely.
I want to go on record as saying that I was the one who raised it at the last meeting. I am not advocating for closing the shop. I'm advocating for understanding with real data from the administrative leadership team what that might look like, what the implications might be. I appreciated Ms. Ouimet's comments at the beginning of the meeting. My suggestion was actually in response to Ms. Ouimet said how important it is to follow the leadership of this school in the district, which I agree with 100%. And I've heard Dr. Linkenhofer say for 4 years, and I think he's also said it to the faculty, he's floated this idea of closing shops, right? I regret the anxiety that it brings to the school community, no doubt. And I understood what I was getting into for sure. This year we face that budgetary shortfall of several $100,000 because of the out-of-district tuition increase, which is set by DESE. It's out of our control. So that was corrected and we had some breathing room, but that combined with those enrollment numbers with that Hampshire County number looking at 33% declining enrollment, I want to, looking at all of our sending communities, which are very small, and we're going to take a larger and larger share of their eligible student population. How sustainable is that? Just thinking that it is fiscally responsible for this school to just say, what might this look like? That's all I'm asking for. So I'm not interested in closing it, just to say to Dr. Linkenhofer and his team, I've heard about this from you for a few years. We had a scare. And honestly, I don't feel like things are going to get any better in the short term fiscally, looking at both state and federal funding for education, especially state that's trying to make up for cuts in federal funding, right? And then it's not going to get better. So I just would like more information. That's all I was asking for.
Oh, no, I understand.
At the next meeting, let's say, or the meeting after that, to say what might that look like, what shops would be considered by them, not by me, but by them. That's where that came from.
And
Well, I want the confidence of the school, teachers, the staff, the city of Northampton, the taxpayers, to understand that yes, visually, we are looking at this as part of our job, but we are the caretakers. But at the same time, I don't want a message going out to the community that, oh, did you hear Smith School's going to start shutting down departments? I don't want that out there. I want to say it. We're doing our job as far as trustees to view the
Agree.
possibility.
And I don't want to have to lay people off.
I echo both positions for Mr. Kaling and Dr. Julie. I'll go on record too. I don't necessarily want to see any closing down of any shops. We are fiscally responsible, and I think as caretakers, we need to look at what the alternatives may be. And as Ms. Ouimet mentioned, it does take a number of years to shut down a program, and we know that. I don't think anybody on this board, I'm speaking for myself though, wants that to happen, but we need to look at the data and look at the real world. What could happen? And I think it's responsible for us to at least investigate and, as Dr. Julie indicated, have the administration team get back to us with some real data.
In that same vein, though, when we had that conversation at the last meeting, we also flipped it and said, are there new trends that we should be viewing, and possibility of opening a new shop that is a better draw of our students and preparing them.
Absolutely.
And that was not part of that discussion. That was one piece that was missing as well.
Good point.
So I would move that we have a presentation of data that looks at, let's say, I don't know how to phrase this in a way that is super sensitive, but just gives us a full picture of what our possibilities are and what, based on employment, based on interest, student interest, future employment, what are potential opportunities for growth and what are areas of challenge for us.
And I think this is valid discussion, definitely, to talk about it. But I think as this one agenda item I'd like to table, and this can be brought up again at any time for the future to come on before the board, or your recommendation for the leadership team to come here before us and yay or nay in regards to any presentation they'd like to make in favor or decline of any department, and we would listen to any information.
If I may, maybe one recommendation is, hopefully the budget is beyond us after tonight, and I can get back to my more traditional show of the regular superintendent report. One recommendation might be in an upcoming superintendent report. Not that I would be recommending particular shops, but I take the opportunity to walk the board through what that process looks like. It is very prescriptive from the Department of Ed. These are the steps. This is what would have to happen. The data that we would have to look at. This is the data that the department would review, and I outline all of that. Just so I think the board would then be on the same page of what does that path look like. That might be a milligram.
A first step.
A first step.
Yep.
And then if the conversation at some point gets to the point where we're not sustainable and that difficult decision has to be made, yes, I have shared it over the many years when we talk about the capacity issue. That's a very difficult conversation for all of us to have. And before we even, my opinion, before we even entertain identifying any shops, I would want to ensure that the board is fully aware what that process is and fully supports the process before the leadership team is asked to come back and give any list of any potential shops. Because once a potential list is shared in an open meeting, we can imagine what the repercussions are. So
right.
That would be my recommendation.
And I would like to see in that something that addresses the concerns around the messaging, which I understand and appreciate. Because it can be framed much more positively than, oh, we're closing the shop. More like we're wanting to understand where we are, what the immediate future looks like, and how to respond in the healthiest way possible for this school to continue to thrive.
Under our standard operating procedure of the Board of Trustees of Smith Vocational, anything can be brought forward. And I think that, again, if this set off a panic among taxpayers or students or the teachers, instructors, I'm concerned about that, very concerned. And what I would like to do, as I've recommended, is to table it for now, and it can be brought up again at any time.
I was fully aware of how I felt like was I'm going to have a target on my back for proposing it, and I'm willing to, well, for now anyway, to have that happen, because I feel like it's irresponsible, it's irresponsible to ignore it. Because it's such a long process, if we keep kicking the can down the road and just say, well, someday we'll, all I'm asking for is real actual information. That's it, to say, to address all of these, and maybe we'll say, you know what, we're fine. Let's keep going with our 15 shops that are, that have a little bit, that are maybe a little bit under enrolled, because we can do this for whatever reason, it works for us. But I feel like I'm not making a data informed. My thinking isn't informed by actual data, information in all these areas.
Well, as far as any action, if we want to take it to a vote, why don't you do a roll call?
Well, you tabled it,
yeah.
so.
As far as either tabling it for now and coming to the future. So a yes would mean that we're going to table it. A no would move it down the road.
You're chair, so I don't know how that works. Robert's rules, I thought that once it's tabled, especially recommended by the chair, that it's tabled.
Okay,
Yeah, you can just table it.
Mhm.
just table it.
Mhm.
Okay, table. All right, the next item. May I have a motion this second to approve what the mayor wants, the FY27 school budget. May I have a motion this second?
I'll move. So,
Can you second? I'll second.
Thank you.
Okay. Yes.
Okay.
Discussion? Any further discussion? Hearing none?
We have to do a roll call vote.
Yeah, roll call.
Mr. Kingeline,
Yes.
Mr. Quadro,
Rick.
He's muted.
Great, I'm muted, sorry. Yes.
Dr. Spencer Robinson,
yes.
Mayor Sierra,
Yes.
Dr. Bonner.
Yes.
At this time, I'd like to, Mr. Tom Fitzgerald is in the audience tonight. He is one of our board trustees. Tom, thank you for attending tonight.
Oh, thank you, my pleasure.
And
Good to be back.
it was good to have you here. I also would like to take this time for a moment of silence. Michael Florio, who served in a capacity here at the school for years in regards to our working with the different departments and the monthly meetings that we would have, the morning meetings to talk about the work that our advisors doing. And he chaired that for quite a few years, and he passed away the other day, and services will be upcoming, but if we could just bow our heads. Thank you. So we have future business. May 19th will be our regular board meeting here in the library. June 9th will be another regular board meeting. Future events, May 6th is an early dismissal for afternoon staff PD. May 25th is Memorial Day, school will be closed. May 26th will be our senior banquet. May 27th will be our senior awards night. May 28th will be the senior graduation. And we're gonna have a motion in a second to enter into executive session. The chair moves to enter into executive session under Massachusetts General Law, Open Meeting Law 30A, Section 21A, to conduct contract negotiations with Unit H to reconvene in open session for possible action.
Mr. Quigley?
Yes,
Second, is there a second?
Second it.
thank you.
I beat you to it.
Mr. Quadro?
Yes.
Dr. Spencer Robinson?
Yes.
Mayor Sierra?
Yes.
And Dr. Bonner?
Yes.
We're doing a roll call on the actual vote now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so once there's a motion.
Yeah,
second,
okay.
approval.
When they have a motion second to approve the Unit H contract that was negotiated in executive session.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Mr. Cahaleen?
Yes.
Mr. Quadro?
Yes.
Dr. Spencer Robinson?
Yes.
Mayor Sierra?
Yes.
And Dr. Bonner?
Yes.
And now, Dr. Martin, you get to do your official duty.
Yes, I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
All in favor?
Second.
Thank you, Dr. Martin.
2 more times.
You want